You ever have one of those nights where the past feels alive again, like your memories are whispering through the trees? That's what it was like the evening everything started. My late father built our family's cabin by hand back in the 1950s, he always said. This place isn't just wood and nails, son. It's our roots. It's our dignity. I thought about that every time I sat on the porch, listening to the crickets and the lake breeze. But that night, the peace was broken. My phone buzzed, and the caller ID read, HOA Enforcement Office. I didn't even live in their neighborhood. My cabin sat outside their official mapland. My father fought to keep free from anyone's control. Still, when I picked up, I heard the sharp, nasal voice of a woman I knew too well. Mr. Harlow, she snapped, this is Karen Dobbs, president of the Lakewood Estates HOA. You're behind on your monthly fees. If you don't pay, we'll be sending people to collect. I laughed, thinking it was some kind of mistake. Karen, you know darn well this cabin isn't part of your subdivision. My family owned this land before your HOA even existed. She didn't flinch. Not anymore. The HOA voted to annex the road leading to your cabin. That means you use our roads and you pay our fees. Non-negotiable. That was the moment my stomach dropped. They weren't just after money, they were after control. The next morning, I walked into town for supplies. Folks were whispering outside the general store. One old neighbor, Earl, pulled me aside. His face was lined with worry. Watch yourself, he muttered. Karen's been bragging at the diner. She said she's sending her enforcers to your cabin. Heard they're coming this weekend? My heart thudded. Enforcers, that's what she called them. HOA board members with clipboards and petty power, or worse, some hired muscle. I drove back to the cabin, anger burning in my chest. The porch light flickered as I unlocked the door, like even the house itself was nervous. Inside, I stared at my father's old military flag folded in its wooden case above the fireplace. He served proudly. He taught me never to bend to bullies, and that's when I made a decision. If they wanted to fight, I wouldn't be standing alone that night. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Miller, I said when he answered. It's Harlow. You remember the cabin? There was a pause, then a low chuckle. How could I forget? Place we swore we'd always protect. What's going on? I told him everything. The annex vote, the threats, the so-called enforcers. By the time I finished, Miller's voice was steel. Say no more. I'll call the others. We'll be there by Friday. Hung up, relief washing over me. Miller wasn't just anyone. He and I served in the Marines together. We'd been through fire, chaos, and worse than any HOA Karen could dream up. And now he was bringing the brothers. Friday came like a storm. The sun dipped low behind the pines when I heard the rumble of engines. Headlights cut through the trees, then I saw them 4 Harley motorcycles roaring up the gravel drive. Miller led the pack, his beard streaked with gray, eyes sharp as ever. Behind him were Torres, Jenkins, and O'Neill, men I hadn't seen in over a decade, but who still felt like family. We clasped hands, rough grips full of unspoken trust. Jenkins laughed as he looked at the cabin. Still standing strong? Just like us. You better be, Torres grinned. We came ready. I noticed the gear strapped to their bikes, not weapons, but the kind of preparedness only Marines carried. Radios, tactical flashlights, even a few cameras. They weren't here to brawl. They were here to protect and expose. Enforcers, huh? O'Neill smirked. Can't wait to meet them. That night, we sat on the porch, sipping coffee as cicadas buzzed. I told them about my father's words, about how Karen had been terrorizing the neighborhood for years, fining people for flowers being the wrong color, demanding payment for roads that were built with county taxes, even threatening to tow cars from private driveways. Miller leaned forward. Bullies like her survive because no one stands up. Tomorrow, we'll remind her what happens when she pushes too far. I slept easier knowing my brothers were near. But deep inside, I wondered what would Karen do when her so-called enforcers realized they weren't intimidating some lone man, but 5 Marines ready to defend their ground. Morning came crisp and tense. We were finishing breakfast when the sound of tires crunched down the gravel road. A black SUV appeared, followed by a pickup truck. My stomach tightened. The vehicles stopped, and out stepped 6 men in matching polo shirts with HOA compliance embroidered on the chest. They carried clipboards, but the way they walked, broad shoulders, puffed chests, I knew they were here to intimidate. And then Karen emerged from the SUV, perfectly pressed outfit, oversized sunglasses, and a smug smile that made my blood boil. Well, she drawled. Didn't think you'd have the guts to stay, Mr. Harlow. We're here to collect. Monthly dues plus late fees. That'll be $3,800. Cash or check? I stood tall on the porch, my friends behind me like a wall of steel. Karen, I don't owe you a dime. This cabin isn't part of your HOA, and it never will be. Her smile tightened. You use our road, you follow our rules. These men are here to make sure you cooperate. Tora stepped forward, voice calm, but carrying the weight of a drill sergeant. Lady, you brought the wrong crowd to the wrong cabin. The so-called enforcers shifted uneasily. Jenkins pulled out a body camera and clipped it to his vest, red light blinking. O'Neill followed suit. Miller crossed his arms, silent but radiating authority. For the first time, I saw Karen falter. Her sunglasses slipped a little, revealing eyes darting between us. But she forced a laugh. This is harassment. You'll regret this when the sheriff arrives. Good, I said, because I already called him, and he'll want to see exactly how you're trespassing right now. The air was thick with tension. My heart pounded. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The silence after my words hung heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. Karen stood at the bottom of my porch stairs, lips pressed so tightly together they almost disappeared. Behind her, the so-called enforcers shifted, unsure if they should act tough or back away. Miller's voice cut the tension. Calm, controlled, dangerous. Karen, I've dealt with warlords who had more respect than you. This land doesn't belong to you, and neither does this man. You take one more step, and you'll regret it. Her chin shot up, that practiced smugness sliding back into place. This isn't about me. It's about the rules. And everyone has to follow the rules. I couldn't help but laugh. The absurdity of it, all trying to strong-arm me over a road that wasn't hers, over fees she invented. Karen, these aren't rules. They're scams dressed up in legalese. And the sheriff will see that soon enough. That flicker of doubt passed across her face again. She turned to her men. Document everything. Pictures, notes, make sure we have proof he's refusing to comply. But Jenkins, already recording, stepped forward. Don't bother. We've got your threats on camera already. Whole world's gonna see how your HOA runs. That rattled them, one of the men muttered under his breath. Something about not signing up for this. Karen snapped her fingers at him like he was a dog. Do your job, Brent. And just like that, I saw at her control slipping. These weren't enforcers. They were neighbors she bullied into service. Ordinary guys trapped in her web. And for the first time, I felt something other than anger. Pity still. Pity didn't change the fact that we were nose-tunes with people trespassing on my land. O'Neill leaned in, his voice low and razor-sharp. Lady, you've got about 3 minutes before that sheriff pulls up. My advice. Get off this property before you're the one paying fines. Karen smirked, but her sunglasses couldn't hide the sweat beading along her hairline. You think this intimidates me? You think I haven't dealt with men trying to scare me off before? Torres stepped down one stair, his boots echoing. Scare you? No. Remind you. Yes. There are still people in this county who won't bow to you. Karen. And you're standing on their porch. That was the moment headlights flashed through the trees. The distinct crunch of gravel under a heavy vehicle. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up, lights flickering red and blue across the cabin walls. Sheriff Daniels stepped out, his hand resting on his belt. A big man, seasoned with the kind of eyes that had seen too much nonsense. He scanned the scene, the SUVs, the polo shirt squad, Karen with her clipboard, and us lined up like a wall on the porch. What in the Sam Hill is going on here? He barked. Karen was quick. Too quick. Sheriff, thank goodness you're here. We have a dangerous trespasser, refusing to pay dues. He's threatening my board members. We need immediate action. Her words dripped with practiced authority. She thought she owned him, but Daniels turned to me. Harlow, I know you. Your dad was a good man. What's all this about? I kept my voice steady. Sheriff, this is my family cabin. My father built it before Lakewood Estates even existed. These folks claim they've annexed the road, and now I owe them fees. They showed up today to collect, without any legal paperwork, on my property. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. He looked at Karen. Annex the road. That's a county road. Always has been. Just a second. Then she plastered on her fake smile. Well, the board voted, Sheriff. The HOA has authority, no. Daniels cut her off. His voice was a hammer. You don't. You can't annex county land. Not with a vote, not with a threat. And you sure as hell can't storm someone's property with a posse. The men in polo shirts exchanged glances, clearly relieved someone else had said it out loud. One by one, their bravado drained away. Karen's face flushed crimson. She stepped forward, pointing at me. You don't understand. He's undermining the community. If we don't enforce dues, everything falls apart. Property values will plummet. Sheriff Daniels took one step closer to her, towering over her bravado. Lady, the only property values I see falling are the ones you're destroying with this nonsense. I suggest you take your group and head home before I write you up for trespassing. For once, Karen didn't have a snappy comeback. She sputtered, glared at me, and hissed, This isn't over, Harlow. You'll regret humiliating me. Then she turned, snapping at her men to get back in the vehicles. Engines roared, gravel sprayed, and just like that, they were gone. The sheriff tipped his hat toward me. Sorry you had to deal with that circus. Truth is, you're not the first she's tried this on. But you might be the first who stood tall. Not just me, I said, nodding at my brothers. We don't bend to bullies. Daniels gave us a hard look, then cracked a rare smile. Well, keep your cameras rolling. Karen's the type to come back, but now you've got evidence. And me on record. With that, he drove off, leaving the night quiet again. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. I knew Karen. That woman didn't lose gracefully. She'd stew, she'd plot, and she'd return. The question was when. Miller clapped a hand on my shoulder. This was just round one. She'll come harder next time, but we'll be ready. That night, as we sat by the fire pit, I told the others about my father. About the summers spent fishing off the dock, the winters when the cabin walls shook with laughter and stories, about how he fought zoning boards, developers, and anyone who tried to take what wasn't theirs. This place, I said quietly, staring at the flames. It's more than just a roof. It's who we are. And I'll be damned if I let Karen rewrite that. The fire crackled. No one spoke, but I felt their agreement in the silence. Family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was the brothers who showed up when the world tried to knock you down. The next day proved us right. It was barely noon when a drone buzzed overhead, circling the cabin like a vulture. O'Neill cursed under his breath. Guess she didn't waste time. Miller grabbed binoculars, tracked it. Commercial model. She's spying. Building a case, Good Jenkins said, raising his camera. We'll build ours too. We spent the afternoon documenting everything, pictures of the road. Property lines, even the old survey markers my father hammered in decades ago. Every nail, every board, every shred of history, we captured it by sunset. I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope, but hope can be dangerous. Around 9 p.m., the headlights returned. This time, not SUVs. A line of cars stretched down the gravel, horns blaring. People piled out, neighbors. Some I recognized, some I didn't. And at the front, Karen again. Her voice amplified by a bullhorn. This man refuses to pay his fair share. She shouted into the night. He freeloads on our roads, mocks our rules, and endangers our community. We demand justice. It wasn't just an intimidation tactic. It was a full-blown spectacle. A rally. And she was turning neighbor against neighbor. Kids clutched their parents' hands wide-eyed. People held signs, "Pay your dues." No exceptions. "Protect our values." I felt sick. My father's land, our sanctuary, was now a stage for her crusade. Miller rose to his feet, voice thunderous. Enough. His command cut through the noise. The crowd stilled, drawn to the authority in his tone. This man owes you nothing. This cabin owes you nothing. And if you think mob tactics will change that, you're dead wrong. Karen tried to retake the stage, waving her bullhorn. Don't listen to him. He's dangerous. They all are. Veterans with tempers, that's when Jenkins, steady as stone, raised his camera high. Say that again, Karen, right into the lens. Let the world hear how you slander the people who defended your freedom. The crowd wavered. Whispers rippled. I saw doubt flicker in their eyes. Parents pulled their children closer, unsure if they wanted to be part of this anymore, and for the first time, I saw Karen's grip on the community begin to crack. But cracks weren't enough. She'd come back, angrier, louder, more desperate. And deep down, I knew this battle wasn't about roads or dues. It was about dignity. About standing tall when someone tried to tear your history apart. As the crowd thinned, Miller leaned toward me. Round 2's over. But round 3? That's when we finish this. I nodded, heart heavy, but resolute. Then we finish it. For good. That night, after the crowd dispersed, silence fell heavy over the cabin. The pines swayed in the dark like watchmen. My Marine brothers and I sat by the dying fire, the embers glowing against the night air. Miller leaned back, staring at the stars. Karen won't take tonight as defeat. She'll take it as fuel. He was right. Karen didn't just want money, she wanted dominance. And for her, losing control meant humiliation. Humiliation was dangerous. The question wasn't if she'd strike again. It was how far she'd go. We didn't have to wait long to find out. At dawn, we woke to the sound of hammering. Confused, I rushed outside. At the end of the gravel drive, just before the county road Karen's crew was installing a massive metal gate, bright, polished, and chain tight. A bold sign was already bolted to the top. Private road HOA members only. My stomach turned to stone. Torres cursed under his breath. She's cutting you off. It wasn't just intimidation anymore. She was trying to isolate me, make it impossible to get supplies, possible for friends or even emergency vehicles to reach me. Jenkins lifted his camera, zooming in on the workers. She thinks this is her masterstroke. She has no idea she's documenting her own downfall. By mid-morning, Karen herself strutted up, clipboard in hand, voice dripping with triumph. "Well, Mr. Harlow," she cooed, "it looks like you'll have to play by our rules now. Unless you want to live here without electricity, water, or food deliveries." I stared at her, rage simmering. "That's illegal, Karen. You can't barricade a county road." Her sunglasses gleamed as she smirked. "Watch me." Miller stepped up beside me, his voice cold as steel. "Lady, you've just crossed a line you'll regret for the rest of your life." Karen leaned in close, her perfume sharp, her tone a whisper only I could hear. "Pay the dues, or watch this cabin rot." And then she turned. Marching back to her SUV like a queen who thought she'd won a war, we spent the rest of the morning calling county offices, Public Works, even the State Transportation Department. Everyone confirmed the same thing. The road was county property. Karen had no right to block it, but here was the problem. Removing the gate would take weeks of paperwork and court orders. Karen knew it, and she was using that window to break me. I sat on the porch steps, fists clenched, staring at my father's folded flag above the mantel. For a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I couldn't fight this machine. Maybe the cabin's days were numbered. That's when Miller knelt beside me, hand firm on my shoulder. "Listen to me, brother. You've stood in worse places. You've faced worse odds. This isn't about a road. It's about dignity. And dignity doesn't fold." His words hit like a jolt of electricity. I remembered my father's voice. This place is our roots. Our dignity. Stood, breath steady. Then we fight. Not just for me. For every neighbor she's bullied, the plan came together fast. Torres and Jenkins compiled the footage Karen's threats, the illegal gate, the rally, even her slander against veterans. O'Neill drafted letters to local papers, county officials, and a veterans advocacy group. Miller called in favors from friends in law enforcement and media. By nightfall, we had a war chest of evidence. Not fists. Not weapons. Proof. But we weren't done yet. We wanted Karen to know face to face that her reign was ending. 2 nights later, we hosted a gathering at the cabin. Not a secret one. We spread the word through neighbors who'd quietly supported me. Families came hesitant at first, then in greater numbers. Old folks carrying casseroles, kids waving little American flags, people tired of Karen's chokehold. The porch lights glowed warm. The fire pit blazed bright. For the first time, the cabin didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like community, and that's when the SUVs pulled up. Karen stepped out, fuming a smaller but still loyal group behind her. "What is this?" she shrieked. "Unauthorized gathering? Violation of HOA guidelines? Every single one of you will be fined." Her words cracked against the night like glass shattering, but no one flinched. Instead, Miller stepped forward, holding up a laptop connected to a projector we'd set on the porch. The screen lit up against the cabin wall. Video rolled. Karen's voice filled the clearing. "This isn't over, Harlow. You'll regret humiliating me." And her sneer, "Veterans with tempers." And finally her smug whisper, "Pay the dues, or watch this cabin rot." The crowd gasped. Murmurs spread like wildfire. A woman near the back shouted, "She said the same thing to me last year." Another neighbor added, "She'll fine me $500 for painting my shutters beige instead of taupe." Karen's face drained of color. She lunged toward the projector, but Torres blocked her path, calm and immovable. "This is the truth, Karen," he said firmly, "and it's not going away." Headlights swept the clearing again. Sheriff Daniels arrived, stepping out with 2 deputies. He scanned the scene, then the screen, then Karen. "Ma'am," he said, his voice booming over the hushed crowd, "I've seen enough. That gate's coming down tomorrow morning, and if you interfere again, you'll be facing criminal charges." Karen sputtered, pointing wildly at me. "He's manipulating you. They're all dangerous. This is a setup." But Daniels didn't even look at her. "No, Karen. This is justice." The neighbors erupted. Cheers, claps, even tears from some who'd been trapped under her thumb for years. And in that moment, I saw it. Karen wasn't a queen anymore. She was just a bitter woman standing in the ashes of her own power. The gate came down the next day. County workers unbolted the metal, tossed the sign in the back of a truck, and reopened the road for good. Karen tried to protest, but deputies escorted her away, her voice fading into the distance. By the end of the week, she was voted out of the HOA presidency. By the end of the month, lawsuits from neighbors piled up against her, and for the first time in years, Lakewood Estates began to breathe again. One evening, after the dust settled, I sat on the porch with my brothers. The lake shimmered under the setting sun. Kids laughed in the distance. Neighbors waved as they walked by, and the cabin felt alive again. Miller raised his mug. To family, blood or otherwise. To dignity, Jenkins added. I held my father's folded flag in my lap and whispered, "To never bending to bullies." We drank, the silence warm, the night calm. And here's the lesson I want you, my friends listening, to take away. Bullies come in many forms. Sometimes they wear crowns. Sometimes they hide behind rules. Sometimes they sit on a board with a clipboard. But at the end of the day, bullies only win when good people stay quiet. My father taught me dignity isn't given, it's defended. Sometimes with words. Sometimes with community. Sometimes with the quiet strength of standing your ground. So, if you've ever had an HOA Karen, a greedy neighbor, or an entitled bully trying to strip you of what's yours, remember this story? Remember, you're not alone. And remember that dignity once defended is stronger than fear.